This video is about how you actually physically lay out a portfolio and get it ready not only for print but also for digital publication. So the original part of the video, what's following this introduction, was recorded in 2020 during COVID, and at that time there was no option for us to actually have a to show a print portfolio. Nobody was meeting other people, so it was strictly about doing a digital portfolio. So I'm still using that content because it applies to being able to do a print portfolio as well. There's only a couple of changes that you have to make. So while you're watching the video, if all you're planning on doing is a digital portfolio, just follow the video. It'll tell you everything you need to know, and you'll end up at the end of the video how you can get it up onto. I actually use Issuu as an online platform for my portfolio, but anyway, you'll see that in the video. But if you want to use this to prepare for a print portfolio, there's only two changes that you actually need to make. The first one is in the video that follows, for doing work digitally, you actually, when you set up your master pages, you want to use a resolution of 150 pixels per inch. But for a print portfolio, you would want to use 300 pixels per inch. So anytime in that video where you hear me say something about, oh yeah, set this at 150 pixels per inch, that is strictly for the digital version. For the print version, you would want to use 300 pixels per inch. That happens really early in the video, so you'll see. And the second thing you need to take into consideration is that the color space that you want to use for a digital presentation, for a website, digital portfolio, all of those things, all of them, the color space that you want to use for that is sRGB. That is not what you want to use for print. So in print, you want to have your files in Adobe RGB. Now, most of you guys work in Adobe RGB. That's where your master files are in. So you're already ready to go for that for your print portfolio. You simply need to make the conversion to sRGB once you're actually going to take the images online. So I think that is all that we need to do. So just remember, anytime that in the video that you see it says 150 pixels per inch, that's great for digital, not for print. For print, you want to use 300 pixels per inch. And then anytime also in the video where it mentions sRGB is the color space for digital, you want to make sure that you're using Adobe RGB for print. Also keep in mind that it's very simple to do your print book first because it's a higher resolution and in a larger color space, 300 pixels per inch, Adobe RGB. So do your print book first. If you're going to do both of them, that's great. And then it's very simple then to downsample your book, your images, to 150 pixels per inch for the digital presentation, and then do the conversion to sRGB, which is a smaller color space. So the point I'm trying to make here is that you want to do the print book first. It's a larger color space, Adobe RGB, and it's a bigger, high resolution, 300 pixels per inch. It's easy to take that and move down to an Adobe to go from Adobe RGB to sRGB, and also to go from 300 pixels per inch to 150. That is a lossless move. You can't do the other way around. You can't do the digital book first at 150 pixels per inch and then upsize it to 300. Your images will fall apart. So just keep that in mind. And other than that, the video should get you through everything you need to know. Screen. Yep. Okay, great. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do for this 11 by 14 book is we are going to make blank master pages. I'm going to make 2 of them. So the easiest way to make a new page, again, your screen, depending on the version of Photoshop that you're using, may work slightly different than mine. So for me, I have actually got my preferences set up to use the old version of new image dialog box. Regardless, to get to it, it's up at the File menu down to New, or Command-N will bring it up. If you've brought up, in your case, it could be your dialog box may not look like this, but mine, you should be able to at least have the same variables that you can actually put in here. So in this case, I'm actually going to name this thing. So I'm going to start at the very top, and I'm going to call it Portfolio Master Page 1. Let's do single instead. In the drop-down menu for width and height, I'm going to do it in dimensions, and I'm actually going to use my drop-down menu to make it in inches. And again, so for this, it's going to be 11 inches wide, about 14 inches tall. The resolution I want you to put in here for pixels per inch, again, there's a drop-down menu here, so make sure it is in pixels per inch, not pixels per centimeter. Put in 150. 150 is the max size that Issuu will take. And even if you made a larger one, it would ultimately be resized once it goes up to Issuu, so there's no real reason to do it. And things that we need to consider in this are things like speed, download speed, upload speed, the sort of experience in that. So again, the majority of the monitors that we are looking at right now, I would argue that every single monitor that you're looking at right now, none of them are over 150 pixels per inch in terms of the monitor resolution. So there is no reason to go up beyond this. This is a different issue than it would be if we were going to print this on an inkjet printer. In terms of the background contents right here in the drop-down menu, I'm going to pick white. That part doesn't really necessarily matter because as you'll see as we do this, I'm going to change some of this as it goes along. However, the color space down here, I do want you to pick is sRGB. And again, the reason we're going to pick sRGB is that's not only the space that Issuu expects your PDF to be in. Ultimately, what we're building here is a PDF. It's not only what it expects it to be in, and no matter what you end up actually doing online, the online color space, like it or not, thank you Adobe and Microsoft, like it or not, is sRGB. So again, this is another one of the complications that we ran into, or that I ran into in trying to keep this, the idea of possibly a single file that would be available for print as well as online. And it just isn't, again, I'm dedicating this strictly to digital. So at any rate, sRGB is going to be the color space. And so then I'm simply going to say okay to that. And you'll see it actually builds up a portfolio. It's called Portfolio Master Page Single, even though I misspelled that. That's okay. You guys can see where I'm going. I've actually got another one that already exists right here that I'm going to get rid of. And I'm going to build the second one right now. So the second one, again, Command N to bring up the next dialog box, the same dialog box, and I'm going to call this Portfolio Master Page Double. And so for the double, all we're going to do is double the width of this. It's still, my portfolio is still going to be 14 inches tall, but I'm going to double the width of this. So it would be 22 inches wide. Again, I'm just doubling that 11. So I've got an 11 and an 11, and I've now got the 22 for the pages wide. Still 14 inches tall, still 150 pixels per inch. Oh, and if you didn't change anything before, by default, it should have been an RGB color in 8-bit. Don't do 16-bit. There's no reason for that. Background contents are going to, again, be white still. And then finally, sRGB is going to be my color space, and I'm going to say okay to that. So now I've got two basic images that I've got going right here. I'm going to save both of these right now. And so for me, I've already built a folder to contain all of this. We can still build the folder when we actually go to save these things. So I've got I'm going to go to my single page right here, and I'll come up to the File menu, come down to Save As. And I'm going to, again, pick another place. So for me, I've already got a folder called Final Digital Portfolio. If you don't have that, simply click on New Folder, put in the name here, Final Digital Portfolio, find a place where you want to put it on your desktop or in your pictures folder or somewhere on your hard drive, whatever, and go ahead and just create that. I've already created one right here. It's called Final Digital Portfolio. And again, it's going to be Portfolio Master Pages Single. And actually, I'm going to rename this now so that it actually is single. And I'm going to put this in my folder. Again, you want this to be a Photoshop file, and you definitely do want to embed Color Profile in this. And then simply hit Save. So that's the first one I've got. I'm going to do my double spread now, but before I do the double spread, I actually want a guideline that shows me the center, the gutter of this. So to get to that, you actually have to have your rulers showing. So if you don't have your rulers, like you see, I've got rulers on mine right now. If you don't have those rulers, come up to the View menu and come down and do a check mark right next to the thing that says Rulers. And when you do that, you'll get a ruler that'll be on the top of your image and on the left side of your image. And you'll see it's on all images. It doesn't matter what you have open. If you end up with some weird unit, so you can have, your rulers can show pixels, they can show centimeters, they can show inches, they can show a whole range of things. If you don't have inches in your rulers right now, simply hover over the ruler itself. If you have a 2-button mouse or a trackpad and you know how to do a 2-finger swipe to get that, or if you don't have any of those things, simply hold down the control key on your keyboard and click. You'll get a drop-down menu and you'll see that you can change the units for this ruler to be anything you want. And I'm going to, again, make sure that mine is in inches. And then finally, I'm going to come over to the ruler that's on the left-hand side, and I'm going to click on the ruler, and I'm going to start to drag towards the center. Now, you'll see as I'm dragging out, I'm getting a line, I'm getting a readout on this line, and the readout that I'm saying, that in my case, it's saying X colon, and then there's an 11-inch mark. The ruler will want to snap to the middle of this, of your screen right here, which is exactly what we want. Again, it's 22 inches wide. I'm looking to get this guideline to be at the 11-inch mark, and I'm going to let go of that. So now I've got a guideline, and this represents both sides of my pages for my double spread right here. So again, and now I'm going to save this guy, again, save as. I'm also going to fix the naming of this one so that it says Portfolio Master Page Double. I'm also going to put that in that final digital portfolio folder that I'm actually working on. And make sure, again, that it's a Photoshop file and that you are embedding the colored sRGB profile, and say okay to that. Now, the final thing I'm going to ask you just for our setup parts right here, and you only need to set this on one, it'll change it for all. If you look at the lower left-hand corner of this page, you have a fly-out menu down here at the very bottom. You can have this actually show you any number of things. You can have it show you document size, document profile, dimensions, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to ask you to please check this document profile. It's just a way for us to make sure, no matter what we're doing here, that indeed we do have sRGB is going to be our destination space. So, with that being said, I'm not going to get rid of this double yet. I'm simply going to click on the yellow button to put it down in my dock. So I've got some workspace that I can work on here. I'm also going to take then my master page, my single master page, and I'm going to bring it over into this side. Now, your screen may not, your layout of your Photoshop may not look like mine. Some of yours will, because you work with me in retouching. That part doesn't really matter. The only thing that's really going to matter for us in this is that your layers palette is visible. We're going to be doing a little bit of work on layers palette, and obviously that your tool palette over here is visible. I'm also going to ask you, if you don't have it yet, get your history palette visible somewhere. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's on this side over here. We're not going to be using properties much, so you could put it up here if you wanted to, if you don't have it open. If you don't see history anywhere in here, come up to your window menu and come down and click on the check mark right that's next to history, and it should show up somewhere on your screen. You can move it around. So for instance, I can take my history and bring it over here onto this side, and now it's sitting over here. So just so that you know, that's a possibility. But we are going to work with history, layers. Those are the only two things that I really care about you having. Okay. I'm also working in Bridge. I've got Bridge launched, and I have directed Bridge to go to that folder that has actually got, sorry, the folder that has actually got those two files in it that I just saved. Now, I've got those two files that are here in the digital portfolio in this folder right here. And I put them actually, well, let me show you what this looks like on my Finder really quickly. So in my Finder, in Columbia, for my Industry Night folder. So this is my Industry Night Portfolio Masters. It's right here. I've got some of my working files here. These are prep files right here that I'm going to be actually working with, things I'm going to lay out. And then I've got this thing called Final Digital Portfolio. I actually put those two master files actually in the wrong place, because these are ones that I've already built. So I didn't want you guys to have to watch me build 16 pages worth of portfolio. So these Photoshop files right here have already been sized. They've already been laid out as pages. So that's what's sitting in here in the final digital portfolio. This is my sort of overall working file that I've named Industry Night Portfolio Masters. So I've got 3 files in here, 1, 2, 3, I've just got 4 files in here that I'm gonna work with, and then those master pages that I just did right here. So if I go to Bridge, I can actually see that by looking here at this. So these are the 3 files, 1, 2, 3, 4 files that I'm gonna actually, image files that I'm gonna work with, and then this is again my double page and my single page. So the first one that I'm gonna actually open up here, and I've named them 0, 1. Again, I only do this in order. It doesn't really matter as long as you know the order that you want to build yours in. Again, the ordering that you do this in, I'm certain all of you are extremely sensitive to having your images done in a very specific order. This is gonna be no different for me. So the first thing that I'm gonna start with again, and this is a carryover from my print book, but nonetheless, it's this page right here. And if you open it up and take a look at it, all this is, let me hide everybody else. All this is the opening. Hang on, when I hit that, I lost you guys too. So give me 1 second. Okay, so this is basically a print page for my portfolio. And all this is that I took a piece of paper. I wanted something that had sort of more of a feeling, a texture to it. And this is something that I would strongly suggest you guys doing. Instead of just doing something synthetic as the cover of your portfolio, you could actually scan anything. You can scan a piece of paper, you can scan a piece of leather. I had actually a piece of it was an Apple book that had been printed, and it had a really cool sort of like linen feel texture to it, and it was a gray that I thought was really attractive, whatever. So I simply scanned it. If you don't have a scanner, that's fine. Shoot a picture of it with your phone. You can actually shoot a number of pictures with your phone and gang it together. You can scan wood, you can go online. There's a gazillion sources online that you can go to find types of backgrounds that you could use as possibilities for your book. You need to really think about this as it's going to be a book. The mistake I don't want you to make is just to throw together a PDF that's got basically black and white with some images on it, and that's all you're presenting. You can elevate this stuff, and this matters, in my opinion. So at any rate, that's all I've done right here. You can see I've got a couple of guidelines on here. They were simply guidelines to lay out text for me. I'm going to get rid of those guidelines right now because I want to use a different one. So I'm going to come up to my window, and I'm going to come down to, I'm sorry, in my view, and you can come down to clear guides, and it just gets rid of those. Again, they're just positioning guides. That's all they are. So the first move that I've got to make on this thing to actually make it easier for me to actually lay out as a page is I'm going to resize this. Now, we're going to talk about this forever in this. We're going to do it 4 times. You're going to see me do it 4 times. But this is really the thing that's going to make it the easiest, I think, for you guys to do this to do the work that you need to do. Because you're going to be opening up master files. They're going to be all different sizes. So we need to actually standardize all of that. So for me, I'm going to standardize all of that for this right here. So my first move to do this is I'm going to come up to the image menu, and I'm going to come down to image size. An image size dialog box will open up. And 2 things that you need to actually see in this. Well, a couple things we need to change in this. The first thing that we need to change is this check mark right here that says resample. You need that turned on. Once you have that on, there is a drop-down menu here on the side over here that allows you to, again, introduce the increments of measurement that you want to use. I'm going to set mine to inches as well. And then you can see this is a 12 by 12. That's actually the size of my print portfolio. But I am now doing an 11 by 14. So I need these measurements. I need the height of this to equal 14. So I'm going to change the height of this to 14. You'll notice that there's a chain link between these two that actually, when we change the height of this, it also changes the width. And that works great for me because that way, anything that I've got on here doesn't get distorted. So I want it to be this way. However, In the resolution here, you need to change that to 150. Again, 150 is going to be, this is the page size ultimately. Now, it's going to be wider than my portfolio is, than the one I'm making, but at least it will have the correct resolution, it will have the correct height, and then all I need to do is crop it for the width. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay to that. You'll see that this now changes its size. Again, it shrinks it down a little bit. I'm simply going to double click on the hand, which will bring it back up as big as it needs to be. And you can actually see then in the ruler lines that go across the top and the side of my book, 14 inches tall, 14 inches wide. Works out great for me. However, I need this to be an 11 by 14. So that means that it's 14 inches wide. I need to lose 3 inches off the side here, 3 inches off the sides. So the easiest way for me to do it, again, is I'm going to grab a guideline out here to do this. I'm going to grab a guideline and drag it out. And I need to lose 1.5 inches on both sides. So I'm bringing this out. I'm just looking at the little readout that's right by my cursor as I start to pull this out. And when I get out really close to 1.5, I simply let go. So this is now the 1.5 inch mark on here, which is great for me. Then I find that cropping, the new crop tool in Photoshop has been, in my opinion, downgraded. They've actually made it more difficult. The problem with the tool is that the minute you drag something out, when you go to do anything else, when you click anything else, it does the cropping for you, and that doesn't necessarily work for me. So for me, I actually use the marquee tool to do a lot of my cropping. Now, it's not going to be all of my cropping, but it will be a lot of my cropping. So the marquee tool is the second of the tools that are in the tool palette. It's just the square, marching ant square rectangle one. When you do this, you need to go up to look at your options menu up here. I need you to change this. Typically, if you look at this drop-down menu, it will have normal as the style in here. That's not what I want you to use. I want you to click on that drop-down menu and come down to fixed ratio. Inside of fixed ratio, I want you to type 11 by 14. Now, this is just a ratio, so it's not 11 inches, it's not 14 inches. That's what you would get if you went down to fixed size. I don't want you to use fixed size here, because if this now will actually give us some room to actually do creative cropping or just other things. So here's the trick to using this, because the problem that most people have when they try to use this tool, I'm going to try to start this thing, my cropping, right at the intersection of that guideline and the ruler at the top. The problem is that when I feel like I've gotten right on that part, my cursor actually changes from the cross to give me the marquee tool to my normal cursor, which doesn't help me at all. So instead, here's the trick. Simply start somewhere out on your image like this and click and drag down just to start a selection going. Keeping the mouse down, hold down your space bar. That will let you move this thing around without changing it. Move this up till you'll see I can actually push it up. It's hit the guideline now, and I can slowly push it and just change its size. So I know it's on the guideline and it's also hitting the ruler at the very top. Then let go of the space bar and drag your image all the way out to the final at the very bottom. And you'll see when you get down to the bottom, you get all these red guidelines that are coming around. Simply let go. You have now got a marquee selection that is based. Yes. Chase,
could you take a step back real quick? I didn't see how you use.
Sure, I'm just going to do again right now.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got a guideline here that I know is half of my, that's what I need to get half of this off. Again, this thing is 14 inches tall, which is exactly as tall as I want my image to be, but I need it to be 11 inches wide, and right now it's 14 inches wide. So I've got to crop 1.5 inches off of this side and 1.5 inches off the other side as well. So again, that will give me the 3 inches off of this. So again, I've selected the marquee tool. I have gone to the style in my options panel and clicked on the drop down and picked fixed ratio, not normal, not fixed size, fixed ratio. And then I've entered 11 by 14. And so what that does is anything that I do here is I'm just pulled a line out. This is a ratio right here of 11 by 14. So is this. That's also a ratio of 11 by 14. It's not 11 by 14 inches. It's simply a ratio of 11 by 14. So that's what's going on here, and that's why I've set this up right here. However, what I need to do is I need to actually get my cursor up here at the intersection of the guideline and the ruler to start. And the problem that I have with that is that I don't really know. I mean, by the time I actually get up there, you can see that my cursor changes from the crosshair that is the marquee tool to my regular arrow, which is it's the cursor of my Macintosh outside of the screen. So it becomes really difficult to get your cursor or to get the corner of your selection exactly on that mark. So what I'm trying to show you is the trick to actually make sure to guarantee that you are getting that corner. So again, I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. The trick to doing this is click and drag out. It doesn't matter what size your marquee is. I'm still holding down the mouse the whole time right now. I'm still so that I can move it. Hold down the space bar as well. That allows you to move the entire marquee tool without making it larger or smaller, to simply reorient it. If I come over against the guideline, it will snap against the guideline, which is exactly what I want it to do. And then as I move up to the top, you will see I can continue to move, press it against, and you'll see it's actually making the square smaller. So I know now that my top left corner is got to be anchored. It's right at the intersection of that guideline and the ruler at the top. Then let go of the space bar and simply complete the lower right-hand part of your image. And once you get down to the bottom, there's nowhere else to go. It won't make it any longer. It drops, again, it's now snapping to the bottom. So I've got the left side is on the guideline, the top is on the ruler at the top, the bottom is on the border of my image at the bottom, and simply let go. This has now been perfectly centered. It's now an 11 by 14 ratio. It's been perfectly centered on this image, and I should be good to go. Did that work for you, Chase?
Yes, yeah, it worked just fine.
Perfect. All right. So here's the best thing about this. Now, if you simply come over to your tool panel and click on the crop tool, it will automatically snap to the marquee selection that you just made. And when that happens, this is now exactly the crop that I want. So I am simply going to hit the Enter key to go ahead and do the crop. So Enter key or Return key once gives you the crop preview in Layers. Hit it a second time and it'll actually crop the image for you. So this has now been cropped at an 11 by 14. And because I had sized everything else up originally in my image size part, if you take a look at your image size right now, you can see that what I'm looking at now is an 11 by 14 at 150 pixels per inch resolution. It's exactly what I want this thing to be. So I'm going to cancel out of here. The next thing I'm going to do is actually collapse this image. You can see this image is made up of, there's a couple of layers in here, there's some text in here, there's other things that are actually going on in here. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and collapse this guy right now. So again, I'm going to flatten this image. So over to, on the layers palette at the far right hand side, the little three lines that are over here, I'm going to click on that and simply come down to flatten image. It's going to say, do you want to discard the hidden layers? And I'm going to say, sure, you can get rid of the hidden layers. I don't care about that part. So this is now my image, the way I actually want it to be. Now, and this is an important one, guys, right here. I'm going to push this a little bit to the side. This is a critical step right here. I'm going to grab the layer that is of this image, and I'm going to drag it onto my master portfolio page right here. But before you let go, you need to hold down the Shift key so that this comes in perfect register. It will come in perfectly centered. So again, I'll show you without the Shift key what can happen. I'm going to click and drag this thing over and let go. It's going to give me a warning that says you're pasting content copied from a document in a different color space. This is exactly what I want to happen. All of us work in our master images in Adobe RGB. However, we want, for the preparation for this digital portfolio, we want to convert them to sRGB. That's why I made this master page in sRGB, so that this conversion is automatic. If you don't touch anything else in here, it will be set correctly. So what it's going to say is here that My source is Adobe RGB. The destination is sRGB, which is what I want to do. And it's going to say, what do you want to do? Do you want to convert them, which will preserve the color appearance, which is what you want to do. This is the default action right here. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK to that. And then it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm going to say, yes, I'm sure I want to do that. Now you'll notice that when I brought it in here, it did not come in register. Now I could move the thing around. I could do all of that kind of stuff. That seems to me to be way too much work. So I'm simply going to hit Command Z to undo that. I'm going to come back to my opening image as well. And I'm going to do the same move again, but this time before I let go, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. The Shift key will then bring this in perfect register. I'm going to let go, holding down the Shift key. You get the same warning dialog boxes, say OK to both of those, and now you'll see that the image has come in perfect register. Are there any questions about this so far? Okay, my next move on this is to actually sharpen this image, because I'm ready to save this now. This is now the opening page of my portfolio. I'm actually ready to save it right now. You need to sharpen these things. So again, sharpening, I don't know how you guys do your sharpening. I'm going to show you the way I do mine. So I actually use the Nik plugins to do this. So I use Sharpener Pro. So for me, again, I've got this #1 layer right here. It's actually up to the filter menu, down to the Nik collection, down to output sharpener. In the dialog box that opens up, I'm going to click my drop-down menu here for output sharpening. I'm actually going to click display, and I'm going to leave the adapted sharpening at 50%. And it's, in my experience, I've found that this can actually over sharpen things quite a bit, but we'll see. You're going to have to look at it. But the advantage, at least, of this is that any sharpening that you do is going to be what you see. Because again, this is not like a situation where we're sharpening for print, where you really cannot preview on screen what's going to happen on your printer. But in this case, you can preview, because what's on your screen is what's going to be on the reviewer's screen as well. So they're going to be the same thing. Now, we can't really see any serious difference here on this image, but we'll take a look at it later on. I'll show you guys another sharpening routine that you can use in just a little bit. So if you don't have the Nik Sharpener profile, if you want the Nik Sharpener plugins, let me know. I can send you the last version that Google produced that was free. There's a company called DxO that owns it now, that owns the Nik suite right now. You have to pay for their version, but the version that I have and still use was the final version of the free one. So just, if you want it, shoot me an email and I will get it to you. But otherwise, I'll show you another way to actually sharpen your images. But everybody in here, I take that back. We'll save this for the very end. Somebody remind me. We'll go over sharpening at the very end. Most of you guys should know how to sharpen, and if you do, there's no point in us spending the time to go through it. But I just want to make sure everybody's aware that you should, again, we're looking at output now. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK to this. I'm going to zoom in so we actually take a look at it and just sort of see what happened. So this is what my image looks now at 100%. You'll see that the software actually does it all on a new layer. So this is the unsharpened version right here. This is the more sharpened version. I actually think I like the texture, the crisper part of it. So I like this part better. So I'm going to go with this part right now. Now in this case, I'm not even going to bother to flatten this image. You'll see down here at the very bottom, I am in sRGB color space, which is exactly what I want for this image. Again, I'm simply going to double click the hand, which reduces it down so that I can see it full screen right here. And then I'm going to save this as a Photoshop file. So up to the file menu, down to save as. I'm going to navigate to my final digital portfolio. This is where I've already got other, the other pages that I've already made for this book. I'm actually going to put them in here. So this is where I'm going to put it. You need to rename this based on what page it actually is. So I'm going to get rid of that thing that says portfolio, master page single, and I'm going to put in 01. Do not do single numbers. Do not start your book using page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The problem is that if you do that, when you get to page number 10, what will happen in your numbering system is you will go from 1 to 10 to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or if you get to 10, 11, and 12, you will get, your book will be laid out as page 1, and then it'll go to page 10, then to page 11, to page 12, and then to page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you need 2 numbers for your page number. So again, do 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up. And you can see how I've got that in the naming system that I'm going to use here, right here. You do want to make sure that it is a Photoshop file. Whether it's got layers or not isn't going to matter. That will all be changed when we make it into a PDF. But you definitely want to make sure that this embed color profile, and again, check to make sure that this is an sRGB profile that's being embedded in this, and simply hit save. Now you can go back to the original one here, the first one that I actually had, and close it up. This was the master file. I don't need to save that anymore. This guy is actually now 01. This is the one that I just built. You see both things right here. I've got the page. I don't need this anymore. So I'm simply going to throw these layers away. This is now my blank page that I'm going to continue to work on. So then I'm going to go to the second file, and this is going to be the first of the image files that I actually want to size for that. And it's this one right here. So to think about what I've got going on here, I'm going to show you where I'm at on my portfolio layout really quickly, just so that you guys have some idea of what is really transpiring here. You need to think again about how your book gets laid out. So I'm going to do this as small little icons here. So again, in this case here, I've got a page 1. So if we imagine, I'm going to stop sharing for just 1 second, guys, just so that you can see me. I need to show you something else. So hang on 1 second. So I can do this simply using a magazine. So that's what I'm going to do here to give you some idea of what's going on. So what's going to go on in my portfolio right here is, this is the cover of your portfolio, and that's what I just built. This would be page number 1. As you open your portfolio up, this page on the inside is going to be page number 2. This is not where you want to start your images. You want to start your images on the right side. Right side pages can carry a premium. They're much more viewed. They're more powerful in layouts. So this is where I want my book to start. So I'm not going to do my image here. What I am going to do is, I've got my cover here. I'm going to open this up. This is going to be a copy of my cover without that text on it, without the Verser Engelhard photography, without the little logo on the bottom. This is just going to be, what I'm trying to do is create the sense that this is a real piece of paper, or that this is a real hardbound cover book. So my page number 2, if we take a look at that, it's sitting right here. I'll show you what it looks like. I'll open it up in Photoshop really quickly. I got to share my screen again to do that. So this is what my page number 2 looks like right here. It's just a blank cover of that. So when you're doing this work, you need to actually make sure that you remember that you're laying out a book, and what are right sides and what are left side pages. So that's basically the way I'm going to go after this guy. Hang on 1 second. I need to get you guys back as much as I can. Okay, so this is my page number 2 that's sitting right here. Again, it's going to be, I'll hide the guides that are on it. It's the exact same thing that I had going on before as my front cover. It just doesn't have any of the type on it. So now I'm going to go to my page number 3, which will be the first image. So again, odd pages are always on the right side. Even pages are always on the left-hand side. So in Bridge, this is going to be my opening image right here, my first image. So I'm going to double click on this to open it up. Okay, it's now saying that it needs to update text layers for me. This doesn't necessarily matter right now unless you want to edit the text. So I can say update or note, whatever. It doesn't really matter here. It won't change anything right here because this is simply a preview of the text part of it anyway. Now, for these images, these are all tear sheets that I have built. And so I've already got lines. I actually do croppings. And I save the lines that are the crop lines on this so that this is going to be true magazine size.
So I already know what the cropping part on this actually is going to be. It is not an 11 by 14, which is fine. I don't want this to actually be a full bleed anyway. What I do want on this is I do want this to be the exact size of a true magazine size in the US. The magazine size in the United States is 8.25 by 10.875. That's the image resolution. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. But in my case right here, again, in my case right here, I'm going to crop this thing first, and then I'm going to resize it. So to do that, cropping is actually something that is, if you've got a bunch of layers, and you can see on this case here, I do have a bunch of layers that are really building this image out. So in that case, instead of it to actually crop this, I can crop it, but it'll just take a really long time for it to crop. Instead of cropping it and then flattening it, I'm going to flatten it first. But before I do flatten it, I want you to notice right here, I already do have a sharpening layer that's on here. So I'm going to zoom in on this just to make sure that I don't feel like this image is over sharpened. I'll show you what the difference actually looks like. So this is my sharpening layer right here, and I'm taking that on and off, and I'm actually not getting any change on that at all. So, I mean, there's a small change. So I'm comfortable with the amount of sharpening that I've got going here. So again, to flatten your image up to the layers palette, click on the little three marks that are on the far right side of that palette. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to flatten this image. It's going to say, do you want to get rid of the hidden layers? I'm going to say, yeah, go ahead and get rid of the hidden layers. Again, I'm going to double click on the hand just to resize my image so that I can see it. And this time I am going to use the crop tool. So I'm going to click on the crop tool, and you'll see you get crop bars that actually come out. I'm simply going to put my cross mark over the top left-hand corner and click and drag down. It'll be an open-ended crop and let go. And this is now my crop preview. So I'm going to simply hit the enter key again to go ahead and crop it. My image now has been cropped. However, I need to still resize it. So I'm going to go up to my image menu, and I'm going to come down to image size. And you'll see in my image size, I do have, because again, those lines were put out. I've done this before as this 8.25 by 10.875. Again, it rounds it up to a 0.888. But this is the true size of a magazine. This is the size of a Bazaar or a Vogue. So, but what's not correct in this is the resolution. Again, the resolution on this right now is saying it's 299.862 pixels. Again, I need this resolution to be 150 pixels per inch. So I'm simply going to resample that. Again, because I've got resampling checked, it does not change these width and height dimensions on this. And now I'm simply going to say, okay, this has now been resized correctly. And again, I'm going to now take this layer and I'm going to drag it over to what was my master file, hold down the shift key and let go. I'm going to get this warning saying, do you want to convert this? Again, I do want to convert it from Adobe RGB to sRGB. So I'm going to say okay to that. And again, I'm getting the second warning. I'm going to say okay to that as well. And now I've actually got this image that's on, this is going to be the opening page of my portfolio. However, there's certain other things that I can do on this. In a classic portfolio, if you go back old school to when I first was doing photography, all the portfolios that we got were basically plastic sleeves that had black pages inside of them, and you would put your tear sheets in between the plastic sleeve and the black background. Sometimes the black background is actually a better look to this, and you can emulate that here. So just to see what it looks like, I'm going to click the background right here, and then I'm simply going to hit Command-I to invert it. And this is what my image now looks like on a black background. And guys, hang on one second. My room has gotten so bright, I can't even see my screen. So hold on one second. Much better. So again, then I've got to ask myself the question, do I like this on a white background better or a black background better? So I can just do Command-Z back and forth for this. And to be honest with you, I don't know. We should vote. So what do we think? White background or black background?
I like the black background.
Black background.
I think so too, right? The
Mhm.
image is kind of a nighttime-y feeling thing, so the black sort of like takes it that way. So that's what I think I'm gonna go with right here. So this image is now ready to go. So I simply need to come up to the File menu, come down to Save As. I'm gonna change the number from 01 now to 03. Remember, this is my page number 3 right now. It is putting it in my final digital portfolio, so I'm gonna go ahead and save it that way.
Hey, Verser,
Yes.
what are your guides set at for the when you reset this image?
The original one, you mean?
Yeah, what did you set your guides at again?
So so the measurement for a U.S. magazine is 8.25 by 10.875. So it's basically 8 1/4 by 10 7/8. Make sense? So again, I'll show you the easiest way that I know to actually do that cropping. I'm going to come back to my original image. So, and I'll show you how I actually build the guide part of it all. So I'm going to go back to when this thing was just open. I'm going to go ahead and clear these guides, the ones that are currently on here. So I'm going to clear the guide. So this is the problem with the new crop tool in Photoshop, I think. So the crop tool is actually selected right now. You can type in 8.25 inch into this, and you can go across to do 10.875. It may round that up again to actually do that. And so that's what the cropping part will be here. Again, this is inch in this guy. The problem that I've got here, though, is in this that now, as I start to move this around like this, you can sort of see it's going to do that. But if I want to pull in a guideline right now, the minute I click to pull in a guideline, it wants to go ahead and do the crop. This is now a feature that Photoshop has added. Thank you very much. I didn't need that feature because there's no way I can mark this without cropping it. So I'm going to hit cancel to this. I'm going to not use the crop tool to do that. I'm actually going to go to, again, to the marquee tool. And I'm going to, in my marquee tool, change the width and height to be 8.25 by 10.875. And this, for any crop that you want to do, guys, you can put in anything that you want to in here. And again, this is now going to be fixed ratio on this. So I'm still working on this image right here. And I'm simply going to start to drag my, my line out right here. And again, remember, I can add my space bar to move this around. And so I can make it a little bit tighter. If I want to make it a little bit tighter, I can move it over here a little bit this way, over this way a little bit right here. That seems pretty good to me. Choke it down just a little bit more. That seems pretty good to me right there. Again, let go of the space bar, let go of this, and now I can drag in my guidelines around this. And then simply save my image like this. And it will have those guidelines will be saved with it. And so forevermore, no matter when, I can come back in and I can immediately crop my image exactly like I just showed you. So you'll see this is on all of the images. Everything image master that I work on, I actually know what the final crop lines will be and saved on this. So are there any more questions about this? All right, I'm gonna close this guy up because I don't need to save it. I'm actually have already saved this as my page number 3. I can throw again the image part of this, I can throw away again. I am going to hit Command I to invert my background back to white again, and I'm going to just continue this process on. So the next image that I'm going to open up is actually going to be a spread. So it's this image right here. This is going to be page 4 and 5 right here. So I'm going to click 4 and 5 to open them up. And this is my 4 by 5 right here. So again, what this is now, this is going to be a double page spread. So what you need to do, again, magazine. So my original magazine, if a single page was 8 1/4 inches wide by 10 7/8 inches tall. If I have a double spread, all you need to do is double the width. So this is going to be 16 1/2 inches wide by 10.78 inches tall. Does that make sense to everyone? Again, all I'm doing is butting 2 pages together. So it just doubles the width. So that's what I'm actually going to do on this guy. And again, I already know, again, for me, I've already got my crop marks on this. I already know that these crop marks are going to be to that scale. So I'm simply going to grab my, the crop tool, and I'm simply going to click and drag this out. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK for that. And actually, it looks like I still had figures in my crop tool right here. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. I'm also going to turn off the sound on my phone. And I'm going to clear these values in here. There was leftover values in here for that 8.25. So I'm simply going to clear those values and crop this again. And then again, up to my image menu, down to image size. And the size that I want.
I got lost somewhere, Verser.
All right, no, hang on. I'm just going to go back. Okay, so I've got an image up. Let's say that I don't really know what scale any of this is. Do you understand, though, that I do need to have this? Again, I'm trying to emulate a magazine. A single page on the magazine would be this, this part of the image right here. This should measure 8 1/4 inches wide by 10 7 inches tall, 10 7/8 inches tall. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just need to get the.
That's okay.
margins
The
correct.
page right next to it's going to be the exact same thing,
Okay.
right? So 8 1/4 wide plus 8 1/4 wide gives me 16 1/2 inches wide by 10 7/8 inches tall. Make sense?
Continue. Wait a minute. Just keep going.
All right. So at any rate, I'm simply going to crop this because I know I've already scaled this that way. If I didn't know that I'd scaled it this way, I can actually put those values up here in my crop dialog box right here. Or I can go back to my marquee tool and do the same trick here in the marquee tool. So in the marquee tool, again, fixed ratio. The width, though, instead of being 8.25, it needs to double that because this is a spread. This is 2 pages next to one another. This is not a single page. So I'm simply going to change that value to 16.5. I've just doubled it. That's all I've done. And then again, I'm simply going to drag a line out. I know that these crop marks that I've already got in here are correct. And simply drag it out. Again, I just held down the space bar to move it, to do that. So if I wanted to recrop this, if I wanted it slightly different size, I could do this. I could start here like this. And that is now, again, if I use that as my crop here, would be the real crop of this, would be the ultimate crop of this image. But I know that I've already sized this out because I've worked with this file forever. So I know I want it to be on that corner. So again, I'm just holding down the space bar so that I can move this marquee tool around and then let go and come back down to the edge right here. And now those marching ants represent a ratio of 16.5 by 10.875, which is exactly what I want to do. And then simply, again, click on the crop tool. It will align the crop tool to where the marching ants were. Hit the enter key once, will give me the crop preview. You can see over here in the layers palette. One more time, and it actually does the crop for me.
Okay. I think my whole issue was the rulers portion, just like sectioning it out, not with the crop tool or the marquee, but just with the rulers, because mine, I'm using one of my horizontal images and it's a whole different ratio than like the
Oh
one
yeah, and it can be. I mean, if you want full bleed on your 11:14 portfolio, then so let's say that I didn't want this to be like, I didn't want this to look like a magazine at all. So
Right.
I'm going to go back. I want full bleed on this image. So I'm going to go ahead and do this as a full bleed. We'll just treat it like this was never a print that went into a magazine. So I'll do this as to actually so that you can see what this looks like as a full bleed in the magazine or in your portfolio. So to do that, I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. To do that, what I need to do for the marquee tool, the value that I need to put in here is the width now needs to be 22 again, that would be, because again, a single page is 11 inches wide by 14 inches tall. So if I'm going to do a double spread, it's going to be 22 inches wide by 14 inches tall. Does that make sense to everyone? Who doesn't get that one? Okay, so now this is going to be, the ratio here is going to be 22 by 14. And again, I'm simply going to click and drag this out. If I hold down the space bar, I can move things around. If I feel like it's too big, I can choke it down and come back in here and click on this to bring it back in. So again, that looks about right to me. I'm gonna say okay to that part right here. Actually, I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller, a little bit larger. Yeah, and that's how I'm gonna do mine is, and so these are gonna be now, instead of size, the size of a magazine, these are gonna be the size of my book. So again, I'm gonna hit the enter key once. It actually, shoot, I haven't flattened this image, but that's okay. You'll see what I mean by how long this takes. So I'm going to click on the crop tool. Again, it goes right around where the marching ants were. I'm going to hit the enter key once. This is going to be my crop preview. Hit it again. It's actually going to do the crop. And it happens still pretty fast, even though this image wasn't flattened. Again, this has been sharpened here, so I already know that the image has been sharpened, so I don't need to do that part again. So then I'm going to click, and I'm going to flatten the image now. Because again, there's no reason for me to be working on a completely layered file. But then before I actually do any work with this, I've got to make sure that the resolution is still at that 150. So I'm up to the image menu, down to image size. And you'll see here in image size right now, it's saying 16.5 by 10 point something. Again, I simply need to change that to the width is going to be 22. And you'll see that it is now 14 inches tall. I mean, it's 13.9999. So I'm a thousandth of an inch away from being 14 inches tall. Good enough for me. And then again, I'm going to change this resolution to be 150 because that is the resolution of the PDF that I'm going to build. And I'm going to say okay to this. So now this should be my double spread right here. But one of the things that you need to know about building the PDF that we're going to build for issue is that you cannot build spreads in. Everything needs to be a single page. So I don't want to put this in my PDF. So this image as it is right now, I need to break this up into the right page and the left page. I need to separate them into those two, which is what I'm going to do right now. However, I want to see how this lines up on my screen, how this actually fits out on my screen. So to do that, I'm going to open up my double spread. So again, remember, I've got a Portfolio Master double spread. I'm going to open this one up right now, and you can see I've got my central mark right here. I'm going to click on my image. I'm going to grab the layer of that image and drag it onto the double spread. Before you let go, hold down the Shift key so that it centers it. Again, this is going to do the conversion from Adobe RGB to sRGB, which is what you want. I'm going to say okay to that and then hit okay again. And now you can see that it fills that entire screen, which is exactly what I want it to do. Are we good on this? All right. And then finally,
I'm still like a couple steps behind, but I'm thinking I'm getting it.
Okay, well, we're recording this as well, Chase, so you can always follow this again. And we're going to do one more. One more image after this, and that'll be the last one that we do. So we're going to go through this whole process one more time.
All right.
Okay. So this is now the image that I want. However, I also want to crop this again. You can't do spreads together. You've got to separate them. For the PDF that we're going to build, it has to be single pages. So again, I'm going to go back to the marquee tool. I'm going to change my width and height now to 11. So again, I'm going to do 11 by 14 here on this image. So this is now correct. Again, using the marquee tool, I'm going to simply click somewhere in here to start dragging out my the marching ants. Hold down the space bar and tuck it up in that upper upper left-hand corner so that I know it's the marching ants are pressed against those rulers as much as they can be. And then simply drag down to the other side, and you'll see it lines up perfectly with my central line that was in there, which is exactly what I want. And then simply, again, click on crop. It puts the cropping tool right on where the marching ants were. And again, I'm going to hit the enter key once and then hit it a second time. And this is now going to be, again, when we think about your magazine, this is now following that single image that I built. So that single image was page number 3. This is now going to be left side, page number 4. So again, simply up to the file menu, come down to Save As. And I'm going to go to my final digital setup right here. A quick trick for renaming all of these, if you don't want to click on this to actually rename it all, if you simply click on something in there that's already got the formatting that you want. So I'm going to click on the one that says 03. You'll see it changes that name to 03, and then I simply click on it to change that 3 to a 4, and then simply save it. This is now my page number 4. I'm going to go back in history. This is why I want you to have history visible right here. I'm going to go back 2 steps in history so that I get the entire spread back again. And now I need to make the other side, page 5. So again, I'm going to select the marquee tool, make sure that it is an 11 by 14 inside there. And now I'm going to do the opposite direction. I'm going to start my cursor that's up near the top the top right hand side. I'm going to click and drag towards the center. Hold down the space bar, move the marquee tool so that it's touching both the top ruler and the right side ruler. Let go of the space bar and pull this down till it completes the entire selection right here. Click on the crop marks. It's actually put this into crop marks right now. Hit the enter key once, hit it a second time. This is now my page number 5. So again, up to the file menu, down to Save As. Before I do it, check to make sure that this is sRGB. It is. Up to the file menu, down to Save As. And in my final digital portfolios right now, I'm going to name this 05 because this is my page number 5, the right-hand side of my page. Again, Photoshop file embedded with sRGB, and I'm going to go ahead and save that guy. So again, at this stage of the game, I can actually go all the way back up in history to when I opened this thing up. And it's just going to sit up here like this now. So I've got it. It's basically just the way it started. And then I'm going to park this off to the side again. I don't need this guy because I think I'm going back to single images, but I don't know. I could be wrong about that. This was the file, my master file that I was using to make this. I don't need it anymore. I don't need to save it. So I've got one final spread that I need to do, and it's this one right here. This is going to be the spread. It goes much later in my portfolio. I just built page number 3, 4, and 5. This is actually going to be page number 10 and 11. So I'm going to open this guy back up. So this is now the one that I actually want to do here. Now I'm going to go back in this one to just doing the regular magazine size for this. That's what I'm actually going to do on this guy right here. So for the regular magazine size, hang on one second. Yeah. Okay, so you can see this image has also been sharpened. So I've already got that part going on in here. So I don't need to worry about the sharpening part here. I'm going to flatten this image first. And then again, I want this as a double page spread, but I want to go back to my magazine format. I want this to be, again, the way it would be in a magazine. So hang on one second. I'm gonna stop sharing really quickly just to show you what it is that I'm talking about to make sure everybody understands that. So can you guys see me again right here, right? Yes? Anyone?
Yes.
Yep, okay. Magazine. The magazine is 10 7/8 inches tall. It's 8 1/4 inches wide. If I open this up to a spread, I still have the exact same height, 10 7/8 tall, but my spread now is double this. It's 8 1/4 here plus 8 1/4 here. So my ultimate size for a spread of a magazine is going to be 8 1/4 plus 8 1/4, which is 16 1/2 by 10 7/8 inches tall. So That's how I'm going to crop this image. So let me share this again. We're getting to the end, guys. Don't worry. I'm not going to kill you too much longer. Okay, back here into this. So that's what I want to actually do in here. So again, I'm going to go back to the marquee tool. I'm actually going to zoom in on this image a little bit more, just so I have a little bit better ideas what's going on in here. Back to my marquee tool, and again, I'm going to change the fixed ratio here to a width of 16.5, exactly what I just said, by 10.875. So again, the 10.875 is the height of it, 16.5 is the double width on this. And then I'm simply going to click and start to drag out and to see what I like in here. Again, holding down the shift key, I can move things around. So you've got to sort of set, depending on where you start. Since I started up here, I'll show you. Since I started up here at the left-hand corner here, I need to keep it up here. I need to set this left side first and the top side. That's what starting there would actually do. If for some reason I wanted to start from this side over here and click and pull down, then I'm actually setting the top and the right-hand side of that. But so for me, it just depends on how you actually start it. So I'm going to click and start on this side over here, and I'm going to drag this out. And what I want to do is include her hand. I can lose part of her head right here. I don't want to catch that part of her foot on the right-hand side or her knee on that part either. So I'm going to continue to move this back a little bit. And you can see that my cursor is actually going off of my screen, and I'm not able to get the entire thing. So Command D to deselect and do it one more time. Try to start something here a little bit closer to what it really will be. And that feels a little bit better to me. Again, I'll keep it up a little bit more and pull it out a little bit more. I want to make sure I catch part of her hand. So this looks like a better cropping for me. Again, what I'm going to do is get rid of this part of her knee, that part of her foot. I'm okay with this part staying in here, but that's how I'm going to actually leave this part right here. So again, I'm going to click on the crop tool. And you'll see it's actually based on the selection. I'm going to hit the enter key once, and then I'm going to hit the enter key a second time. And this is now the image that I'm going to work with. However, if you go up to the image menu and you come down to image size, this may not be scaled. And you can see it's not scaled correctly at all. It's actually scaled to be, I don't know, 4.875. Again, we need to change this to the width on this is going to be 16.5. And you'll see it will automatically reset the height correctly because that was the ratio that I used. But then I'm going to click on the resolution and I'm going to put in 150 because that's, again, what I want to be on this image. And I'm going to click OK. This image now will actually be a double spread that's sized to a magazine size that I can then work with. So I'm going to go up to my window and I'm going to open up that 05 is my double spread. So I'm going to open this guy up. I'm going to click on the image right here. I'm going to then come over here, again, grab the layer, drag it on top of my master double spread, hold down the shift key and let go. Again, I get that conversion warning, which is what I want to happen. I get the second warning, that's fine. And you can now see that this image has actually been laid out exactly in, this is on my 11 by 14 pages. So again, the spread itself would be 22 by 14 because it's a double spread wide. I don't see my guideline here. So to see the guideline again, if I've got one, I'm going to hit Command H. I'm missing that command. So somehow I've lost the guideline, the center guideline in there. It's fine. I'm simply going to bring it back. I'm going to click again on the ruler on the right-hand side, drag my guide over. I'm watching my readout till I get to 11. It snaps to it. Now, in this case, this is actually, and this is just something that I wanted to show you guys and talk to you guys about. Portfolios should be interesting. They should bounce your eyes around. One of the worst portfolios I ever saw anybody do in my entire life, they were a portrait photographer and they did square portraits using a Hasselblad camera, and their portfolio consisted of every single page. There was an image only on the right side that was identical in size to the page before it. So as you went through, nothing on the page ever moved around. The content changed, but nothing ever moved around. And it was so fucking boring. I couldn't believe after 10 pages, I was like, Shoot me now. I get it. I've seen this whole, you could have told me that in 5 pages. You didn't need to show me 10. So the thing that I want to point out to you guys is that you can do things in your portfolio that make it more dynamic, that make it more interesting. And so what I'm going to do with this image is I'm not going to keep it perfectly centered. I'm not going to keep it perfectly even like this. It's scaled right for me, but I'm going to move it around. So I'm going to hit the V key to get the move tool, and I'm actually going to shift this thing over to the side and down. So I'm going to set it so it drops down a little bit lower so that I've got a heavier border on the top. I've got more negative space over here. And this is how I'm going to pull it back just a little bit so it doesn't quite cut right through that panty line right there. And then possibly up just a little bit. And that is going to be how I crop this image. So now again, to crop this image, to go back to what I needed to do, I'm going to click on the marquee tool. Again, I need to do single pages on this. So in my single pages, in my fixed ratio, I'm going to go back to 11 by 14 because that's my page size. I'm going to do the left page first. I'm going to click again, start to pull it down, hold down the space bar, jam the marquee tool up into the top left-hand corner, drag it all the way back down till it hits that center mark, and then click on the crop tool and say, I want to crop this, and say okay to that. Get the crop preview. It has now been cropped. Now, again, I've got my single page is sitting right here. So I'm simply going to grab that top layer right here, drag it over onto my single page right here, hold down the shift key, which is really critical now because this will actually scale and it brings it in. When I copied the single page over here, the single version of this to my single page over here, it actually did the exact crop. It moved it in the direction that I wanted it to be moved into. So that's exactly the way I want this thing to be. So again, I'm on this page right here. Now this is going to be my page number 10. That's what this is actually supposed to be. So up to my file menu, down to save as, and I'm going to give it frame number 10 or page number 10. Make sure that it does go into my final group right here. I'm going to say okay to that to save that. Then again, this thing has actually done its job. I can throw the layer away. I'm going to go back to my original double spread and I'm going to go back one step. This has actually still been moved now, and I'm going to again grab my the marquee tool, click and drag in the opposite direction now, goose this guy up into the top, and simply drag it down. And this is now my other side of my image. This is going to be my page number 11. Click OK to that. And then again, do the crop, drag the layer off onto the single page, hold down the shift key, let go, it brings it into space correctly. Come up to the file menu, come down, do a save as, and this is page number 11. And I'm gonna go ahead and say okay to that. So I'm just trying to encourage you guys to actually think about that. We could have done other weird things like that. We could have had one of the pages, half of the page on black, like this, and the other half of the page on white. I mean, there's all sorts of games that you can play in this. You can do multiple images this way. You could have images that are stacked on top of one another. You can play with your layouts in here to make your image, to make the spreads that we're actually looking at more dynamic. And I encourage you to think about that. Don't be into this, oh, every single image has got to be perfectly centered in the middle of my screen. That just gets boring. All right, I'm going to stop the sharing part right now and simply come back to you because all the Photoshop work has been done. And I need to know, are there questions about this so far? We're really close to the end, guy, because the rest of it is pretty automatic. Anyone? Are we good? Okay, I'm going to share my screen again and show you how we finish this up. This is the relatively easy part now. Getting your images sized right is the real challenge in all of this. So I'm going to close all of this up in Photoshop. I don't need to save any of this stuff. I've already got all the pages that I need. Actually, for that matter, I can even quit Photoshop, which will give me a few resources to be able, hopefully my screen will be a little bit more responsive and work a little bit faster. I am going to go to Bridge now, and inside of Bridge, I'm going to navigate to that. Sorry. I go just out to my Finder and find where this guy is really quickly. It's in my final digital portfolio images right here. I'm simply going to drag that on top of Bridge. And you can see this is my layout right now. I've got my cover, I've got the inside page, I've then got the opening image, the spread that I made to be full bleed. I've got another one in here that you haven't seen, a single spread that's not. I've got the other spread that I made here that's also not full bleed. This one is also not full bleed, but it's offset, so it's not the exact same as this one. I've got a closer image right here, another insert page right here, a contact information, and then I'm closing my book out with blank pages right here, but they're not blank pages. I don't just like get to the last image and end. You need to think about this like it is a portfolio. So first image is right here. Then this 2 and 3 is a spread. 4 and 5 is a spread. 6 and 7 is a spread. 8 and 9 is a spread. 10 and 11 is spread. 12 is the end of my book on the left-hand side. 13 is a blank page. The back of that, 14 is now contact information, blank page. And then finally, the end of the book right here. Now, you can have an odd page number book in digital format, but you can't have one in real life. So I'm trying to emulate the real life one. So that's why I've got this set of pages here at the very end. And you'll see what it looks like when we go ahead and publish it. So with all of that being said, here in Bridge, one preference you need to make sure is set up is up to the Bridge menu down to Preferences. And in the Output preference, make sure you have Preserve Embedded Color Profile enabled. Otherwise, there is no guarantee that what you think your images are going to look like are going to be what they look like right here. So Preserve Edit Embedded Profile, you need to make sure that that is checked. We made sure that it was checked when we were saving these images. Now we need to make sure that it's checked for the PDF that we build. But this goes to something that happened to me yesterday that you guys need to know about, and this, please take this down. If somebody is viewing your PDF or your issue, once we build this issue in Firefox, Firefox does not have color correction, color management enabled by default. In Chrome, Chrome also not by default. It has a better version than Firefox, but not quite. Safari has color management enabled by default. When you speak to the person who is going to do your review, I'm also going to ask Rebecca to send this to them. Simply ask them if they would mind using Safari to view your portfolio. If they do, then your portfolio will have all the exact color that you've been looking at all along. If they don't and they use Firefox, it can be wildly off. If they use Chrome, Chrome is actually a little bit better, but not much. So again, there are ways to enable it, but you don't want to get into that. Simply ask them to use Safari. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 9 out of 10 people, if not more, are going to be using Safari anyway, and we're going to be using a Mac. And so Safari will be available to them. If not, ask them to use Chrome. Chrome will be better than Firefox without any unless you enable color management. So just so that you guys know that. So at any rate, with your images now in order, exactly the way we want them to be, because we numbered them that way, in Bridge right now, you want to click on the Output tab, and in the Output tab, a window will open up, and the whole thing here is about building PDFs. So we are going to look at the far side over here. I'm going to start, and I'm going to do the setups for this first. So in the output settings that are sitting at the very top, we are actually going to, if you look at, sometimes they'll have in here, the usually maximum size is the one that's on by default. This doesn't mean anything to me, and I wouldn't use these guys. I'm actually going to put in the values that I want to use. So you'll see on the side over here, I've got a page size. I'm going to ignore that as well. I'm going to do a custom size. I'm going to use my drop-down menu over here and change my, again, my increments to inches. I'm going to then put in the inches that I'm doing. So again, my book is going to be, again, single pages. Remember, we are only building single pages, 11 by 14. So again, if you were to do, if you wanted to do a landscape book, remember we had talked about doing an 11 by 17. So the 17 would be the width of it. This is what I'm just going to show you so you can see the preview of what one would look like. This would be a landscape book that a lot of photographers would actually use, would be this part right here. And if you had your images set up to be laid out on an 11 by 17 book, so you can do any measurements in here that you want to do. So, but again, I'm going to go back to my 11 by 14. Then the resolution here, you need to change this resolution. There's a drop-down menu. We need to change it to, again, 150 ppi. Now the image quality in here, I'm gonna actually bump this up a little bit because they are going to, all of your images are gonna get converted to JPEG. I'm not gonna go up to a 12 maximum, but I am gonna go up to a 10. In all the testing that I've done, this will be really high quality. It'll be good enough for anything. Again, I don't know that I would wanna print on this, but on your screens, this part will actually be terrific. In terms of the thumbnail placement, all of this, you can leave all of this at its defaults because we're not going to include any of this information. We're going to just have one image per page on this. Do not include file names or it'll start putting text along the bottom of your images. I'm going to leave all of that part blank. In the next little panel that opens up here that says grid and margins, click on that. Now, I don't need to change any of these things up here at the top, but you'll see that there's a cell sizing in here, and you can see it's this, there's a little border line that's around here. This is actually to allow you to set up full bleed for printing. We don't care about that. This is all going to be digital, so we do want them to be full bleed, but we don't need this safety zone here at all. So to get rid of that, it's here under margins. Come up and take your top margin and crank it down to 0, the bottom margin to 0, the left margin to 0, and the right margin to 0 as well. You'll now notice that your cell width is indeed the full 11 by 14. You'll notice that there is no little borders around here. That's exactly what we want. In the next channel, the next thing that opens up, header and footer, leave all of these off. We're not doing any header and footer in here. The next one down in watermark, you do not want to watermark this guy. The next thing down in the PDF properties, this matters. So in the PDF property, you do not want to enable security passwords on here. You don't want permissions in here. You don't want open passwords in here. You want to avoid all of this. In issue itself, you can restrict who gets to see your PDF in there. That is the place to do this. Do not do this here. You also don't want to enable playback because what will happen here is it will work as a slideshow and it will start to change pages automatically. You want to have this allowed so that a reviewer can go back and forth, so you don't want to set up slideshow right here. So again, all of this just stays off at its default. Then you click on your image number 1. You go all the way to the other side, hold down the Shift key and click on your image number 2, and you drag your entire portfolio up on top of this area right here and let go. It's showing us right now page number 16, which is the end of my portfolio. You can go back and review earlier pages right here. So that's my page number 14. This is my page number 12 right here. So you can review all of that. This should be set up correctly. Click on Export to PDF. In my case, I'm going to call this test number 11. I would give your PDF, no, actually, I'm not going to do test number 11. I'm going to do Verser Engelhard. Portfolio 2020. Make it something meaningful. Make it something so when somebody sees that, they know exactly what this is, including you. And then I'm simply going to save it in that parent folder where I'm doing all of this work. So I'm going to click on Save. It's going to generate the portfolio right now. And then because my preferences are actually set to open this up, it's also going to open up a preview version in Adobe Acrobat. So this is what my portfolio now is looking like. If you simply click down to thumb through the pages, you'll see that this is done correctly. That's my opening single page. This is actually, though, again, you want this to only be single pages. If you build your PDF as double pages, what will happen when you load that to issue is it will take those double pages and it'll take 2 of them and gang them together, and you will end up with a 4-page experience as opposed to a 2-page experience. So this is done correctly. Again, everybody was single in here. So I've gone through here, and this part is actually exactly the way I want it. So we're going to see how this works. So I'm going to go to issue now. So I'm in a browser. Now for me, I've already registered for issue. All you need to do when you register here, it doesn't cost anything. It's free. There are pay versions of it, but you don't need to do the pay version of it. You simply need to do the free version. It does have ads that surround it, but when you enlarge your portfolio to full screen, there are no ads. So you don't need to worry about that. The experience will be one that doesn't have ads in it. So simply go, you put in your name, your email address, and a password, and you are good to go. So for me to get there, I'm simply going to type in issue. It's ISSUU /Verser, because that's my username. It's going to take me to my page right here. In my page, I'm going to go to publish. In publish, this is now going to open up. You can see I've already got, I've got a place down here. You've got publications. Issue is pretty amazing in that it will rescale all of your stuff for different size devices. So it'll change, it'll reformat it for a phone. It'll reformat it for a horizontal computer like I've got right now. It'll reformat it for an iPad. It does all of that part automatically. There's also all sorts of ways that you can connect stories. It's really, it's designed for social media so that you can actually build links to the issue experience on your social media. So at any rate, it's definitely worth exploring. But for our purposes right now, the only thing that you need to do is click on Add Content. Window will open up and it'll say just drag and drop your content right here. So I'm going to go find the PDF that I just made. So the PDF I made is right here. I'm going to also change that PDF so that it's Engelhard, not Engelhard. Can you guys tell that my typing skills leave a lot to be desired? Okay, Verser Engelhard portfolio. So that's it. That's the one that I actually want. So I'm simply going to drag this onto this area right here. It's actually going to upload the file. So what can your file be? In terms of uploading, you have, I think it's 100 megabyte limit to a single image, and it's also 500 pages to a single file. So you can do unlimited files. That part doesn't matter. But for each individual one, you have a 500 page limit and a 100 megabyte limit. You can see the one that I just built has got 16 pages in it. And it's also was about a little under 6 megabytes. So that's what my book actually looks like. So you can see we've got a preview right here. I'm also going to give this a title before we say okay to this. And my title is going to be Verser Engelhard. Portfolio. 2020. Yep. That's also going to be the description. Again, this is all about keywording. If you want your thing to be searchable, you would actually be far more descriptive about what was going on here. So you would add things like fashion photographer, beauty, lingerie, blah, 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 all the other stuff right here. In terms of the type, right here, I'm going to say that it is promotional and marketing because this is my portfolio. You can backdate something. So if you want to, it appear as if it was uploaded last year. You can backdate when it's done. If you include links in this, now we don't have any links in ours, but you actually might have a contact information that is linked. So on your contact page, if you've embedded a link to that, you can actually say, I want you to detect the links in this, and those links will then be live in the issue version of this. The availability here, I'm going to leave mine on public right now. I'm not really worried about who else is going to see it. You could actually, though, set this as unlisted, or you can do scheduled here, which will actually then publish it at a certain date. You can also allow downloads of your portfolio or not. You can also enable SEO, which is search engine optimization, which basically means you're opening up your issue publication to all the crawlers that Google and everybody else has out there to detect the stuff that's actually going on. If you click on remove banner ads right here, what will happen is that it'll take you straight to the pay versions of this. To the you'll see that there's, if you look at it here under pricing, there's basic, which is free, and then there's standard, which costs I don't know how much, and then there's premium, and then there's a deluxe. There's all different versions of levels of doing this. However, again, you can see that my image right now, this is the ad space that I'm really seeing here, and you can see that there's really nothing going on in here. So nonetheless, this is what my portfolio actually looks like. I can thumb through it here at a very small level here like this, but what I really want to do is click on this. And again, this is what you need to make sure that your reviewer is doing. They need to click on the little full screen part right here. If you click on this, you will see that it occupies now your entire screen. You will see also at the bottom, there's you can actually scroll through this really quickly. In our case, I don't need to scroll through it. I've come in at full size right here. So then I'm simply going to click on the arrows to start going through it. And this is my portfolio that I just built with you guys. So you can see in here, my color actually stayed correct. My spreads, you can see that was the full bleed spread on that. This is not. This is actually an image that I did at magazine size on a black background. This is what one looks like on a white background. And remember, this one's now perfectly centered, but the next one I said I wanted to offset that. And you can see it is slightly offset here. I think, again, this tends to build more interest in your portfolio. I'm going to continue to work my way through here. That's the close of my book. And remember, I said you want a flat page here. You do not want to throw your contact information here to compete with your image right here. Instead, I'm going to go to my next page. This is where my contact information is. And conceivably, I could have done this on this side of my screen, on the right side instead. Because again, remember, I told you the right side tends to be a little bit more powerful. But what this also is representing in a real portfolio, this would be the inside of the actual cover of the book. So usually you can't print on the cover part of the book, and that's why contact information usually ends up right here. And then my book simply closes like that, and I'm done. Then to get out of here, simply hit the escape key. And I've got you guys, I'm sharing right here. So hit the escape key and you go back. The final thing, you'll see that this is in draft form right now. If you actually want to then go ahead and publish this guy, you actually need to click on the draft, and then you put somewhere in here, we actually, oh, you can preview this on what this will look like on mobile as well. So again, you can go through all of this stuff right here in terms of doing all of that. But once I'm ready to actually get all of this done, of course, I would get to the very last part of this. I'm still in draft mode right here, and I want to actually publish this. Oh, right here, the button right over here on the other side right here, publish now. And it will click, and it will actually take you, it says you're live on issue now, spread your content to the rest of the world. This link right here is the link that you would actually copy. So I'm gonna copy this link right here, and I'm gonna post this in the chat for you guys to see if this thing actually works for you. So you can also see, this is where you can share it on social, and you'll see how it actually is laying out in social media. You can actually add it to a website, so you can embed this into your own website. And there you go.